Check out this thing you can do with Ableton's Resonators device. Take any audio source. I'm tinkering with this shaker-heavy drum track. Run it through Resonator's wild combo of filtering and tuning, and you can transform it into a full-on synth layer, functioning harmonically and melodically. Check out how it sounds, and then I'll show you how it works. Here are the basics of how Resonators works. Start with the dry-wet parameter. At 0%, you'll hear the raw, unprocessed audio of the track. At 100%, you'll hear only the synthesized sound of Resonators. Resonators has 5 tunable elements. Resonator number 1 is the master tuning for the whole device. With this parameter, you choose a root note. This is the note that the other 4 resonators will deviate from in semitones, upward and downward. My chord progression is B minor 11 to E minor 11. And I'm going to be fancy and set my note to F sharp, which is the 5th of B minor 11 and the 9th of E minor 11. A good place to start is with a note that is shared by all the chords in your track. This will allow the synthy texture to glide throughout. I'm going to raise resonators 2 and 3 by 7 semitones. Now, resonator 1 will be playing F sharp, serving as the master tuning of the device set by the note parameter, while resonators 2 and 3 will be producing the pitch 7 semitones above this F sharp note, which is C sharp. This is prime because over B minor 11, F sharp is the 5th of the chord and C sharp is the 9th of the chord, a choice note. For resonators 4 and 5, let's shift them up 12 semitones. Now, in addition to our F sharp and C sharp, we'll get another F sharp, an octave higher. Pretty nice. But what about when we go to the next chord, E minor 11? Do these notes still jive? Technically, or theoretically, they do. But now, the C sharp that resonators 2 and 3 are producing becomes the zestiest possible note, the 13th, turning this into an E minor 13 sound. This is a bit too high octane for what I'm going for, so I'd like to keep the C sharp, which is 7 semitones, for the first chord, B minor 11, and then change the note for the second chord, E minor 11. But how do we do this? This is a great example of a creative limitation imposed by the device. To change this note midway through the chord progression, we'll have to automate the semitone parameter of resonators 2 and 3. This could indeed be done far easier by using a regular synthesizer and simply drawing our desired MIDI notes into the piano roll. But this is what is so great about a device like Resonators. It's a fun, creatively rewarding challenge to try and implement your musical instincts while embracing the hindrances and impediments that arise from the device's scarce and specific parameters. By changing the semitone parameter of resonators 2 and 3 from 7 to 8 semitones during the second chord, E minor 11, the note changes from C sharp to D. D is the 7th of E minor 11, which is still a colorful note, but not quite as tangy as C sharp. I've enhanced this semitone change by gliding between C sharp and D, achieved by automating the fine-tuning parameter. My favorite part of how Resonators is designed is the choice of parameters that allow you to manipulate the sound. Very simple but highly effective. There is a filter with 4 filter modes and a decay knob. With just these 2 parameters, the sound can be shaped into risers and drops or morphing textures and pads. I've further developed the sound by adding a few more devices and effects to the chain. By placing vocoder before a resonator, you can convert the input source into noise, allowing you to shape it before tuning it with resonators. In this context, vocoder allowed me to make the transients of the drum sound a bit more uniform. This also gives us a third parameter to manipulate, the vocoder depth, which functions more or less like another variation of a decay knob. To add a bit of polish, let's use 4 effects. Let's warm up the sound with roar. In multiband mode, I added 10% of saturation to the low band and 15% to the mid band. But the most important part is cranking the tone all the way down. I like the way the default settings of this tone parameter sound. Next, I added a healthy dose of delay with echo. I have the dry wet set to 50% in ping pong mode. All of this sound then gets pumped with sidechain compression. I've taken advantage of automating the dry-wet mix of the compressor to be able to control the motion of the sound throughout the track. And last but not least, I've added quite a bit of reverb with hybrid reverb. The dry-wet is set to 35%. I packaged this effects chain into an Ableton rack, mapped these key parameters to macros, and created a bunch of macro presets so that you can use it in your projects. You can download the rack on my Patreon. And if you're into the sounds and harmonies you've heard in this video, check out my website, jaronlopez.com, where you can get instruments, presets, sample packs, MIDI packs, and more. You'll find all the links below. Until next time, farewell.